Good evening. This is meteorologist DT with a snowstorm podcast for January 10th, 7:15 here in the east. Lots to talk about with this next event for January 12th to 13th. Very complicated forecast, but also a lot of fun to figure out as well. We'll start up by taking a look at the overall hemispheric pattern, the big scale things. And we can see that in terms of getting a pure East Coast snowstorm for this event on the 12th or 13th, it's not looking great. And we'll see why here. We'll see the P&A, it's positive as you can see here, and then which is good. Then it drops down negative late in the period, and the pattern changes, so that's not good. And the NAO is positive, which is very bad, and then it goes to neutral. And the EPO is positive pretty much the whole way through, and that's not a good sign either. The Arctic oscillation, goes positive here a little bit, and then as you can see right in here, and then it goes negative in here, that's not bad, that's a good trend, but the other features here are just not very good. Again, these features here are not particularly favorable. So if you take a look at a snowstorm matrix here, 11, 12, 13th. Now again, in case you're not familiar with this, the blue represents moderate snow here, a few inches. So we have that for the Midwest and the Ohio Valley for 11, 12, and 13. And the deep south, no, this is nothing. The pink here is nothing. And then the interior northeast, you can see that significant snow here for the interior northeast, and then maybe some light snow. The green is light snow, rain ending the snow. That sort of minor accumulations in here, not a big deal. And then at 14, 15, again, some weak systems here for the Midwest, Ohio Valley, nothing else for us, just cold and dry over most of the East Coast. And then 17th, 18th, and 19th, there might be a little system with the 17th and I-95, 17th or 18th there. We'll get to that in a minute. All right. Now this here is the overall pattern here at 48 hours, large hemispheric shot, well, North America shot. And the important thing here is the southern shortwave. So that's what this is right here. This is southern shortwave. And then this is the northern piece of energy. See that? Now, look at the trough alignment here, the tilt of this short wave. You see how it's running due north to south like this? That means it's neutrally tilted, neutral. And as it comes east, it's going to become a negatively tilted. It's going to do this later on. And we saw that with the big blizzard last week, except that all occurred over here, not over here. And then this piece of energy is coming down as well. It's going to sweep it and push it off to the east. Nice big ridge here on the west coast, bringing in the cold air again. And you can see, sure enough, here at 60 hours, what did we just say? Yep, there's the negative tilt. You can clearly see that. And there's the northern piece of energy. Now here's our big ridge in the Atlantic Ocean, bringing up the strong south winds, making temperatures warm up. Until the northern piece comes in and rips off the top of this ridge, it stays pretty more warm on the East Coast, and there's our ridge. All right, and then if we look at 72 hours, now here it comes. Remember that piece of energy? The first piece swings down here, the southern piece is here. So the low is now on the New Jersey coast or New England coast or Connecticut, and there's a big main trough coming in with the Arctic air behind it. And we'll see that in the temperatures in just a minute as well. This is the same image, but again, the hemispheric shot, and you can see this huge vortex over Greenland. So this is a very strongly positive NAO right here, which is good for the Ohio Valley and the Appalachians, but it's terrible for I-95, and a big nice ridge here on the west coast. And we take a look at the European. Now this is the European from yesterday. All right, this is the, let me call this up here so you can see. This is the 0Z. This is 0Z here on Tuesday. This is 12Z Tuesday. And you can see the lows here over Pittsburgh, and then 12 hours later, the European has it like over Martinsburg, the Virginia Panhandle. Here's our big, enormous high. Look at the winds coming in behind this thing. Very impressive. And look at the strong south winds hauling up the warm air from Georgia up to Boston. Pretty impressive. Now here's the updated one. This is this morning, the 0Z run and the 12Z run. And you can clearly see how the low has moved from, I guess, interior New England here to now Long Island and New York City. The problem is, of course, we saw these very strong south winds bringing up the very warm air, and of course the rain snow lines back over the Appalachians. Now the high is coming in this way, bringing down the cold air. So the low-level cold air is clearly coming in. So there's going to be a significant ice in the interior of New England, I'm afraid. And that could be a real problem here with an ice storm on early Saturday morning. If you look at the precip, this is interesting. There is the precip from the front up here, and then this is the actual low itself, tracking up this way, as you can see. But look at the dry slot. Over interior New England, New York City, Philadelphia, Washington, Baltimore, Richmond, down to Raleigh, a dry slot. Charlottesville maybe, Charlotte itself, North Carolina, a big dry slot there. So, and that's indicative of a low, which is just inland. You get that dry slot there when that happens. Look at the temperatures here. Now, this is Thursday afternoon. You can see the warm temperatures. 62 Charlotte, 64 Raleigh, near 60 in Richmond, and 40s and 50s over the Northeast big cities. But if we go the next few hours later, this is Friday morning. Temperatures gone up Friday morning. Rose overnight in Richmond to 63, 64 degrees, mid 60s in Raleigh, 60 in New York and DC, and upper 50s in Baltimore, Philly, and mid 50s New York City. Now here's your cold front. You can clearly see that sucker. Look at this baby right here. Boom. But meanwhile, the strong south winds feeding the warm air, definitely ahead of the system. Now this is Friday afternoon. Yeah, near 70 in Raleigh and Richmond, mid 60s in DC, Baltimore, 60 plus, perhaps as far north as New York City. Can you believe that? But again, very clearly, very pronounced cold front right there. So that's going to be interesting to watch this come through. And then as we go further, make sure I didn't skip a map. Now this is the European from the last 2 days. So over here we have the European on, this is Tuesday, the 12Z run. This is Monday, the 12Z run. This is Tuesday, and this is today's. And you can clearly see, look where the low is, West Virginia, here, Martinsburg, on the coast. Clear shift to the east on the European. At the GFS, not much of a change. The 0Z run, the 12Z run, about the same. Really, not much of a change here at all. And then this is the GFS here from the last, again, from the 12Z runs the last 2 days. So again, this here is Monday, Tuesday, and today, and these are all 12Z. You can see the low over Binghamton, then over at Wilkesboro, Scranton, and then further to the east. Again, clear shift to the east on all the models here in the last 48 hours. And if we look at the ensembles, same thing, big shift to the east, can't deny it. Not a huge shift, but incremental and very noticeable one with each model run. So it's hard to ignore that. Now here's the European ensemble. This again is Monday versus today. Here's Monday, this is today. They're both valid. Friday evening, 7 p.m. Friday at 7 p.m. Look at the cluster of lows tracking here, and now look at them here like this. So big difference here, shift to the east. Now this is the same model, European ensembles, but this is for valid Saturday morning, January 13th, 7 a.m. All three of these. All right? Now, this is Mondays. This is Tuesdays. This is 0Z Tuesday. Excuse me. This is Tuesdays. This is 0Z Wednesday. And this is today's 12Z Wednesday. And you can clearly see it shifts to the east with each run. Now, if we look at how it progresses, you can Friday evening, 7 p.m. Notice everybody on the East Coast is all rain with these very warm temperatures. Not a surprise here. It's changing over in Pittsburgh, and it looked like they got good snow in Ohio and Eastern Kentucky here, and Buffalo, up into Toronto. It's actually raining in Montreal, or very close to raining in Montreal. Excuse me. And then as this is Friday, Saturday morning, 1 a.m. Now it's snowing like hell, according to this, in Pittsburgh and Altoona. Much of West Virginia's got snow. It looks like it's gone over to snow in Roanoke, of all places. Eastern Kentucky, Eastern Ohio is still snowing pretty good. Messina's gone over, Watertown, Montreal's gone over, and you can see the ice, the change over here, freezing rain and change over mixing here, right along in this whole area. North of Albany still. And then this is Saturday morning, 7 a.m. Notice that it's still raining in Boston and New York City, Philly, probably DC, but just to the north and west, they got mixed precipitation. A lot of snow here in much of central and northeast Pennsylvania, in northern New York State, up towards Montreal, northern Vermont, New Hampshire. And then finally, 1 o'clock Saturday, it's beginning to wind down. Boston may still be raining, if you can believe that, or just mixing a little bit. So not a lot of snow for Boston in this event, according to this information. You look at the snow maps. This is the regular snow map from the European. It looks very reasonable as a first guess. This is the Koshera map, heavier snow in western and upstate New York, northern Vermont. That seems very reasonable. Moderate snow, Pittsburgh and Zanesville, eastern Ohio, that sort of thing. If you look at our temperatures now, here comes the crash. 1 a.m. Saturday morning. Now look at the contrast here. 60 in Richmond, low 60s in Norfolk, Salisbury, and look at Roanoke, 29. Wow, that's a front. Pretty impressive. Same thing in Pittsburgh and Philadelphia, near 60 in Philly, 23 in Pittsburgh. And now this is Sunday morning. Boom. Look at the teens across most of Virginia, West Virginia, single digits. The Cumberland Valley, Western Pennsylvania, teens up into I-95. So look at all the sub-zero where the snowfall is heavy up in this area. Wow. And again, some sub-zero here maybe. And then, of course, in the icebox of America was Minnesota, Wisconsin, and northern Iowa. And you can see now this is the 18Z NAM, and it actually threw a monkey wrench here. Notice it actually takes the low further to the west, if you can believe that, out here. This is significantly further to the west. Most of the models have it over here, so this is kind of far. We'll see if that trend holds or not. So, and that's important because the NAM, the 33-kilometer NAM, did a very good job with the blizzard last week. You remember the first model to hit close to Hatteras? Did a very good job with the December 9th snowstorm in the Mid-Atlantic, and did a great job with the blizzard back in January 2016. Now, so here's our forecast. First guess, this is preliminary. As you can see, it's pretty self-explanatory. The red area is the big snow. As you can see right in here, the red areas, all the big snow in here. You know, because 6 to 12 inches. Not a lot of ice here. The big ice area is going to be area C, as you can see. The purple area, you know, right in here, that's all the ice in this area here. You can see orange, mostly rain, freezing rain. It may end as snow in this area briefly before it ends. And then the A also is looking a moderate snow in this area, a little bit of ice, but not much. So that's the preliminary outlook. So now beyond this, what happens, there's a new trough coming in here on the 15th or 16th. See the upper low right here? That's interesting. See what that does. It's a fairly deep trough, but as you'll see, the ensembles really don't have that much of a feature there. And then it amplifies. You can see the European operational really digs this thing down into a potential low somewhere here or here, right in this whole area, which would be interesting. But if you look at the ensemble, it's not nearly as strong. So it's something to watch, but not a big deal yet. And then beyond that, 240 hours, you can see all the northern hemisphere, North America, I should say, a series of massive troughs coming in here. Here comes the Pacific jet. Boom, boom, howling Pacific jet, ridge forming over the southeast. The temperature goes warm. And that matches the teleconnections we saw earlier. And it's just an enlargement of it. Here it is, Saturday, January 20th. Now, beyond that, does that mean winter is over? No. Now, this is the top of the polar vortex, 10 millibar at the very top of outer space here. And the dark blue and the purple represents this deep, deep cold of the polar vortex. This is what it typically looks like when the Arctic oscillation is positive and you have a positive and a large polar vortex. That's what it typically looks like. Now, the GFS at day 15, day 16 is showing a massive amount of warming developing here, as you can see. All right, and what that does is that forces the polar vortex to split into two pieces, and we end up getting a negative Arctic oscillation and sends the colder southward, perhaps. That's what the GFS is showing. The GFS ensemble showing that to some degree, but not to the same intensity. And then the European is also showing it, but again, not to the same intensity. Now, beyond that, here's the Rossby wave model, the reoccurring Rossby wave model, which takes a look at reoccurring weather patterns over the past month or so and moves them into forward, rolls the pattern over, as it were, continues the pattern. Now, I don't know if you can see the dates here, but let me point them out to you briefly. We have here, this is right here, this is February, I should say, 14th to the 18th. And then this is February 19th to the 23rd, and then the last week of February down in here. So, but what this is showing is the dark blue, of course, is a trough. This is a big ridge here and a trough like this. Another big ridge, another deep trough, and another deep trough. So it's got a very stormy pattern here for February for the Midwest, the Northeast, the eastern coast of the U.S. here. if this is right. Now, maybe the model's picking up on the sudden stratospheric warming we talked about here. Maybe, we'll see. I don't know. And there's other indications that show that the CFS is really very bullish on a big warm up in the northern hemisphere over the Arctic region, sudden stratospheric warming as well. And as we go further out in time here, this is February into March, we can continue to see the deep trough over the eastern United States. Very impressive here. Very cold into mid-March. Finally, the pattern breaks down for spring, and we get a ridge over the Midwest and the East Coast, and the pattern begins to change. But this is indicating a really nice second half of the winter. This is meteorologist DT from weatherist.com. I'll catch you on the Facebook page and on the Twitter page.